Hi, I'm Rainer Stropek.
And I'm Rainer Worbis.
And in the next few minutes we would like to present you our MrX game. MrX was the project that we have created for our participation in the Microsoft Dare to Dream Different contest. As you possibly know, we originally planned to build a game based on GPS indoor technology and the micro framework. Therefore, our first prototype consisted of a U-Blox GPS receiver chip, a mobile power supply and a Tahoe development board. We integrated the GPS receiver and the micro framework board using the UART interface and the EMEA protocol. Then we packed everything into a box and tested it outside in cars, subways and of course inside buildings. The results outside, in cars and public transport were promising. Everything worked really well. Unfortunately, the GPS fixes inside buildings were quite unreliable. As you can see on these pictures, the accuracy was definitely not enough to implement a game in which participants at a conference should find MrX based on GPS signals. At that point of the project, we were quite disappointed. Micro framework and the development board were working great. Should everything fail because of GPS not working? Of course we did not give up. We went back to the whiteboard and reworked the lineup of our game. Because GPS would not work indoor, we decided to replace this component with RFID. We knew that there would be a lot of people interested in RFID at the conference where we would present our MrX game. Therefore, we decided to go for it. Back at the office, we started to implement our first prototype of our micro framework game. We could use some of the hard and software components we had built for the original GPS setup because RFID readers also communicate via the UART interface. It took us 2 days to create the first version of the MrX device. As you can see, it worked, but it was still far away from being presentable at the conference. The prototype showed us that this time everything could really work well. Therefore, we decided to take the next steps. Some nights later, we had created a circuit layout that integrates mobile battery power management, the serial communication between RFID chip antenna and the Tahoe board. The next step was the development of a library for RFID access using C#, Microsoft.NET Micro Framework and Visual Studio. The software part was especially interesting for us because we decided to write a single code base for the RFID driver that can be used not only inside the Tahoe board but also inside Microsoft BizTalk Server and SharePoint. The reason for this was our decision to take these products for the registration process for our game at the conference.
The last step has been the development of the application logic itself. Even though we had very limited experience in developing embedded applications, it took us only 3 days to develop the pieces of software running on the Tahoe board. At that time in the project we were quite excited. Everything was there, the hardware was working, the software was working. The only thing that was missing was the marketing material that was required to present our project at the Microsoft BigDays conference.
My name is Rainer Stropek. I'm standing here in Vienna, right in front of the Austria Center Vienna, where we have the 4th stop of the Microsoft BigDays. At the Microsoft BigDays, we present our MrX game. Our MrX game was built for the Microsoft Dare to Dream Different contest. It's based on top of the micro framework technology, and I would suggest let's get in and check it out. So, this is our MrX and this is the device we have built for the Dare to Dream Different contest. As you can see, it consists of 3 main parts. We've used the Tahoe development board for our MrX application, and we've integrated this Tahoe board with this RFID reader on the top. So what we have built is some custom electronics that cares for integrating our Tahoe development board and our MrX application with the RFID reader. The interface that is used is the UART TTL interface, and the rest of the electronic you see here is for the mobile battery power. Here you see the battery, and this device here is caring for constant current for using the Tahoe development board in a mobile fashion. The first steps for people participating in our MrX game is to register. To show the abilities of the micro framework, we have written the driver for the RFID reader in C#. And we've used exactly the same source file on the micro framework board as we use it for the BizTalk implementation you see here. The registration is done via BizTalk and via this RFID reader that is connected to the BizTalk server using a COM interface. The important message that we want to give the developers is that you can use exactly the same source code from the smallest device on the micro framework board up to a large BizTalk server cluster that is running on top of Windows 2008 Enterprise Edition. Let's follow a participant on his way through the MrX game. Firstly, he gets his personal MrX badge. We put an RFID reader chip on it so we can track him throughout the game. The second step is the registration process. As mentioned before, this is done using BizTalk, SharePoint and InfoPath. Now he's ready to go. Our guest has to start the game by scanning his RFID chip. He sees an image of the Mr. or Mrs. X that he has to find. We worked together closely with Microsoft Austria when picking the persons who acted as Mr. and Mrs. X. We wanted to use the game to get people in personal contact with Microsoft persons who demonstrate interesting things like Surface or Windows 7. In this case, the person has to visit the demo area of Microsoft Surface. He has to scan the RFID chip of Mr. X, and as a result he gets a question of Mr. X that the agent has to answer correctly. If he manages to answer it correctly, he can come back to our booth and pick up his present, a MrX USB stick. The feedback that we got from Microsoft employees, from people attending the conference and other people involved in the conference was very good. Only a few of them already knew about the micro framework technology. However, most of them were very impressed about how easy it is to build applications based on this technology. We had more than 150 people attending our game and we had a lot of fun. MrX and I, we hope that you like our participation in the Microsoft Dare to Dream Different contest too. Indoor, but it's not accurate enough. The measurements are super.